Hey friends, welcome to Mindful Chatting. My name is Kristen and I'm so glad that you're here. But I want to start with something that I think a lot of people with ADHD experience, but don't always have the language for. So let me set up the scene. Have you ever sat down to do something, like actually need to do it? And instead of focusing, your brain just feels loud, like not really distracted, but almost kind of irritated. So you check your phone, you click between tabs on maybe your computer, you're starting things, but not really finishing them. And then at some point, you feel overwhelmed and kind of shut down. And you know what the worst part is? Is that you might even think, because I've been here before too, what is wrong with me right now? But what I want you to understand today, and I hope that I get across for you today, is that that experience is not a discipline problem. It's not a motivation problem. It's not even a you don't even care enough problem. That is what's called overstimulation. And if you don't understand how overstimulation works in ADHD, you will keep trying to fix another problem or even really the wrong problem. And so today we're going to talk about overstimulation and we're going to unpack it. Welcome to Mindful Chatting, a podcast where therapy meets real life. I'm Kristen, a therapist, business owner, and a lifelong student of what it means to fully show up in our relationships, in our work, and in our healing. Here, we unpacked mental health concepts, explore mindfulness tools, and talk through the messy, beautiful, in-between moments that shape us. Whether you're a fellow clinician, a curious listener, or someone navigating your own growth, this space is for you. Let's chat. With the neuroscience, but I'm actually going to keep this really very real and simple and to the point because this is not a neuroscience class. Your brain, though, is constantly taking in information, like all the time, all the sounds, all the thoughts that are running through your head, any notifications that are popping up on your phone, emotions that are running through your body sensations, and any visual input that you're seeing. And a neurotypical brain filters a lot of that out actually automatically. It's quite easy for them and doesn't require a lot of energy. But an ADHD brain, well, that's a little different. Our filters are a lot less, which means there's more information coming in and all at the same time. So instead of your brain going, let's focus on this one thing, let's get this thing done, it's actually going to say something like, well, there's this to do, and then there's this over here, and then this, and also that random thought that I thought about 3 years ago, we need to talk about that right now. And when that happens, your brain is not calm. It's actually very cluttered and crowded with all of this stuff that you're like, I don't know, really know what to do with. Now, here's where it gets really important. Overstimulation is not about your environment. These are two types of noise that are happening right now. So you have your external noise, which is really outside of yourself, your phone notifications, your background of your TV, maybe kids talking, these emails coming in, maybe clutter around in your environmental space, or maybe you have multiple tabs open. So there's multiple things coming at you. But then you also have internal noise. And this is a lot of stuff that people don't really talk about. Internal noise is like racing thoughts, or maybe your anxiety, or maybe this emotional tension that you haven't worked through, or overthinking, or maybe all of these mental to-do lists that you still have to get done. Or maybe you're replaying old conversations that you haven't had a time to sit down and process yet. And this is where people actually get really stuck because they'll say things like, I removed all the external distractions, but why can't I actually focus? Well, because the noise isn't just on the outside, it's on the inside too. If you're nodding along and thinking, yep, this is totally me, I want you to stop and take a free quiz. I have made a quiz about what's your ADHD struggle, and it'll only take a couple of minutes. And at the end, there's a secret freebie waiting for you that will help you start working on your struggle right away. Look in the show notes for the link. Now, let's talk about emotional noise. And this one's going to hit hard. And this is the one that I think people miss the most. Emotional overstimulation. So let's set the scene. You had a very frustrating conversation earlier with maybe someone that you really care about. And then now you're feeling really behind because that emotional conversation is kind of sitting in your head. But then now you feel really overwhelmed because you have this big schedule and all of these deadlines that are coming up. And then now you feel really irritated because you don't really fully process it. And that emotion, well, when you're going into your next task, it doesn't really actually disappear. It just kind of sits in the background of your head. And it takes up actually a lot of cognitive bandwidth to hold that in that space, but also to hold space for what you're doing in that moment at the same time. So now you're sitting down to work and your brain is trying to focus, but it's also carrying this frustration, all this pressure, maybe some irritation, and maybe even some shame. And then your system goes, nope, whoa, this is way too much. So instead of focusing like you should be doing, you avoid. Maybe you doom scroll, or maybe you bounce between tasks thinking that maybe I can multitask and get more than one thing done. Or maybe you even shut down completely. And so we need to talk about this one really honesty. Digital fragmentation, or the modern ADHD nightmare. Your brain was not designed for 10 tabs open simultaneously, constant notifications coming in, switching between apps, and scrolling while you're thinking, and then checking your phone every few minutes. Every time that you switch tasks, your brain has to disengage from that last task. It has to reorient itself to this new task, and then it has to engage all over again. That actually costs a lot of emotional and cognitive energy. So if you're constantly switching, you may think you're getting a lot done, but your brain never really actually settles into a state of focus. And it stays in this kind of fragmented, jittery state. And then you wonder why you feel so exhausted at the end of the day, even though maybe you haven't really done anything at all.
Okay, quick pause. Because you've ever found yourself rewinding this episode like 3 times because your brain just drifted, this is for you. I hear this all the time. I can focus, just not when I actually need to. And that's exactly what the focus course is about. Because here's the truth: ADHD isn't a lack of attention, it's a regulation issue, which is why some days you're locked in for hours and other days you're rereading the same sentence, wondering what just happened. So, inside my executive functioning focus course, I break this down in a way that actually makes sense for you. We go through how your attention works in your brain, your specific focus patterns, why you get distracted externally and internally, and how to actually build a system that helps you stay on track and come back when you drift. Because the goal isn't perfect focus, it's knowing how to return without spiraling. So if you're tired of blaming yourself and you just want something that actually works with your brain, I'll link the focus course in the show notes. All right, let's get back to this episode.
Some people don't even know that they're in a state of overstimulation, which is quite crazy when you think about it. But overstimulation doesn't always sometimes look like chaos. It can actually look like irritability or snapping at people, or maybe avoiding tasks altogether, maybe even zoning out, even if you're in a casual space, or procrastinating on the things that you probably should be doing. Maybe just feeling off or not feeling quite yourself, or wanting to escape and isolate and kind of avoid everyone and every demanding thing from you. Or maybe this one: you want to do something, but you can't start, which may actually be more relatable for our ADHD people in this space. But remember, that's not laziness. That's your nervous system actually giving you some data. It's telling you something. It's saying, I have too much input right now. So now we don't fix this with, I need to try harder, or I need to set up a discipline system, or I need to motivate myself more. That's usually where we start, and it doesn't work. We fix this by reducing the input and increasing the regulation within ourselves. A lot easier said than done. But I want to give you some tips and tricks to be able to notify yourself when you're actually overstimulated and how to work with this when it's happening. So let's work on reducing the external noise intentionally, and that's the first and probably one of the easiest steps that you can do. Remember, not everything has to be off, but I really want you to ask yourself, what is competing for my attention right now? So we need to maybe close some tabs, silence some notifications, maybe clear some visual clutter that's going on around in the desk. Because the more we have less external demand that's coming from us, the more we can internally try to regulate and focus. Now, we need to acknowledge that we have some internal noise going on. And this one's really big. So instead of ignoring all the internal noise, like pushing it down and going, I'm not going to think about this right now, I want you to ask yourself, what is taking up space in my head right now? Sometimes just naming it and identifying it helps a lot to be able to figure out, do I need to deal with this right now? Can I compartmentalize this? Do I need to just do this one thing so that I can actually focus on the task at hand? Now, I want you to regulate before you focus. And this is where people kind of skip these steps. You cannot force your focus on a dysregulated nervous system. So, this can look like walking around for 5 minutes, going outside for 5 minutes, taking deep breaths, stepping away from your screens, reorienting yourself, and then coming back. Stretching, any kind of movement to kind of reorient and ground your nervous system before you come back to the space is always going to help. You're actually not wasting time, even though it feels like it's not doing very much. But this is helping you kind of ground and reorient yourself so that when you come back to the space to focus, you can actually focus when you get there. You're actually starting a preparation for your brain to go, okay, let me reduce and re engage. And then I want you to lower that entry point. So instead of saying that I need to focus for an hour, or I need to get this project done, or I need to do all of these things, I want you to try instead going in and just saying, I'm going to open the document, or I'm just going to look at the thing. I'm not going to read it completely. That's it. Because when we take an entry point that's really super simple, our brain is going to go, well, I can keep going. And remember, momentum is what builds motivation. Motivation just doesn't fall out of the sky. So you have to build momentum. So start off with something that you know you can actually do. And then eventually that builds enough of momentum to maybe want to focus and do it a little bit more. We want to reduce the pressure, which reduces the overwhelm, and then that increases the access to focus. And we need to design our focus, not wait for it. Focus just doesn't happen. It doesn't fall out of the sky. It's created, and it's created through our environment, the structure we create for ourselves, our emotional regulation, and our energy management. Now, if this is something you struggle with, this is exactly what I'm building out in my Executive Function Focus course, and it's available for you right now. Because once you understand how your brain actually works, you stop trying to force systems that were never really designed for you. And you can start building focus in a way that's actually sustainable. And I'll leave that in the show notes if you want to go check it out. If you take anything from this episode today, let it be this. You are not bad at focusing, even though I'm sure that's the feedback that you've been given, and probably sometimes you say that to yourself too. You are likely trying to focus in a state where your brain is constantly overloaded, and that's just a recipe for disaster. And once you start reducing that load, focus becomes a lot more accessible for you. Not perfect, but actually possible. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope this was helpful in getting you to try to think of ways to develop a structure and a system that can help you focus a little bit better. And as always, let's be gentle with our minds.
One more thing before you go, and this helps me personally, staying present and grounded, which we all need, especially when your brain wants to spiral into disconnection. Me too. It's Brain FM. It's musically designed to help ADHD brains, well, really anyone's brain, focus, relax, or sleep, and I use it almost daily. If you want to try it, I've dropped my link in the show notes. And if you're looking for planning tools or ADHD-friendly resources, I'll keep a list of my favorite links in every episode.